Hi, good morning guys. So today we are going to learn about a reverse canvas. As you can see, there were fingerprints on this. I messed it up. So we are going to learn how to fix this. Now first of all, I have to apologize for my voice. I had a biopsy done of my trachea, lungs, lymph nodes, whatever. And so it's a little rough, but I wanted to get a video out to you guys because it's been a while. So if I have a little issues, I apologize, but I wanted to get this one out to you guys. I went and did a whole bunch of paintings and stuff so that way I could put out YouTube videos while I was under the weather. So anyway, so what we're doing now is we are cutting the canvas away from the wooden frame. So now you have to press pretty hard. After I did this, my hands were hurting a little bit because, and especially around the corners are a little difficult because you're going through multiple pieces of canvas. Yeah, so pretty much you press pretty hard to get through the canvas, and what I did was I went and fast forwarded this next part because it does take a while. Overall, to do this whole thing, it took about an hour and a half from start to finish. But I went and fast forwarded these pieces for you just because it can get tedious to watch. But as you can see, I had issues with the corners because of multiple layers of canvas. Just make sure you have a sharp scalpel and then you'll be able to do it. Scalpel or cutting knife or whatever you want to call it. But now it's all free, and as you can see, once you put that frame over top, it perfectly hides those fingerprints that were on the very edge. So my son will be very happy because he absolutely loves this painting. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip it back over again. See, I was very happy that it hid the fingerprints. So I was like, I don't know what to do. So whoever did the reverse canvas was very smart. So, and as you can see, the frames under the canvas are pretty decent. They're a little, a little cheap, but they work for this kind of project. But what we have to do now is we have to take off the leftover canvas that we aren't going to be using. So I fast forwarded this piece as well because, whatever. It's just steps that we have to take. I just wanted to show you guys, step by step. And this part, it wasn't that difficult. The next part was, this part was taking out all the staples. Some people leave them in, but I did not because I didn't want them to hinder the pins that we end up putting in. I didn't want to run into them, but I had to find the right tools to use to get the staples out. I had some issues. So, but I ended up finding the right tools and we ended up getting them all out. So I ended up skipping over, getting all the staples out, but that was the next step. And then what we do is we end up painting, and pretty much you can paint whatever color you want, and depending on if you want a kind of like a what do you call it, Like for this one, I just wanted solid black. But if you wanted it to look like it was a stain on the wood, then you can use, like if you wanted a color in the painting to pop out of the painting, you can use that color and stain the wood with that color. Use like a baby wipe to apply the color, and you will get like a nice stain. I did that on a painting when I did a reverse canvas a couple months ago, and if you go on my Instagram, that painting is there, and if you message me, I will show you which one it is. It turned out beautiful. I had messed that painting up because I had touched it before it was dry. This was when I first started, and I was always touching my paintings because I was so excited, like, oh, is it dry? Oh no, it wasn't dry yet. So this particular painting, I was showing my husband this painting and some other paintings, and my hand was too close, and I went and pulled my fingers away, and I just barely touched the painting, and I was like, oh. So that's how these fingerprints got on this one. It was not because I was planning on touching the painting. I have since learned, do not touch paintings. Anyway, so yeah, you pretty much just paint. And like I said, if you want the stained look, you can, paint it with a baby wipe. It actually gives it a really cool effect. And it's easy. You don't get any paintbrush, strokes on it or anything like that. I'm using a sponge applicator to do this one. Now these frames have little slits on the inside and outside, so I had issues. I went and pulled out a little paintbrush to do, the inside parts and the little outside parts, to make sure I got, all the light pieces covered. But yeah, just paint away. Alright, so now here we are putting in the little push pins. There's teeny, not teeny, but little, the tops are flat, and they're thumbtacks, that's what they're called. Had a little brain fart there. And my little sledgehammer, I guess, I don't even know what you call it, but it's a rubber tipped hammer, works very well for this. And then I saved my thumbs. So what you want to do is try to pull the canvas as tight as possible without tearing through these thumbtacks, because that will happen. So you just have to be careful, but try to pull it as taut as possible. And then you just go around, and I used these two popsicle sticks as a kind of a measurement to make sure and see, that I was putting them equidistant apart, because if you end up selling the piece, you want it to look nice. You don't want it to look all haphazard on the back. And then what I also when I was doing this one, I learned that what you can do is you can take one of those popsicle sticks and kind of judge from where the middle of that last thumbtack is and use that as a measurement. So then you end up creating a straight line, and then voila, it's not perfect, but it's close enough that it ends up looking okay. So it's not the greatest, but it works. The only thing is it does take a little bit of time until you get used to it. After a while, it ended up flowing pretty well. But as you can see, you have a nice straight line. Then you just continue going. You lay them right up next to each other. And then the other thing you got to make sure is that you're not too close to the edge of the frame, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be cutting that canvas off. So that's the other thing that you have to worry about. So you don't want the edges of the thumbtacks to be sticking over once you cut that frame off. Once you cut the canvas off. But yeah, you end up doing all 4 sides just like this. Now you can see why it took an hour and a half. But I mean, if you can think about it, an hour and a half to create, something like this, that's not too bad. Not in the whole gist of things. I mean, but also, you do have to factor in dry time for the paint of the frame. So it did take a little bit longer than that. But the frame, I only did 1 coat of paint. If you wanted to do more, you could. But that's up to you. I figured that it looked nice, so I was okay with 1 coat. But yeah, I think you guys pretty much got the gist of it. So what I'm going to do is I end up finishing up off camera doing all the rest of the sides, because like I said, it took a while, and I'm just trying to show you guys pretty much the gist of how this works. And yeah, if I showed you guys the whole thing, it would have been a very long video, and you guys would have been like, oh my goodness, Pippi, what are you doing? So, it does take a while to get used to the thumbtacks and how to get them in there too, as you can see. But there we go. Okay, so now we are all done with the pins and we're going to start cutting. Now what I was trying to do was use my popsicle stick as a guide to do straight lines, and yeah, that works, but it ended up getting quite difficult, so I did it on this one side, but then I ended up giving up on it and just kind of using my eyes to kind of gauge it. But again, you have to cut very hard, very deeply, because you're cutting through the paint and the canvas, so it gets a little difficult. But pretty much I was putting the popsicle stick up against the edges of the push pins to use those as a guide because they were pretty straight. So that worked out pretty well. But I ended up just using, in the end, just using the popsicle stick on the corners to create an edge that looked presentable. Sorry about my head. My head does get in the way on this step because it's more, I had to see what I was doing. So there's no way to edit that out. I apologize. But yeah, so you can see my wonderful dreads. Anyways, but yeah, so pretty much, again, like I said, you have to press pretty hard to get through the paint and the canvas, because that's what you're cutting through. And see, there's me looking up like, oh, am I in the view? Okay. And see, I haven't given up on the popsicle stick yet. I will, though, I'll tell ya. Might not do it on camera, but I will give up on it eventually. There we go. I'm like, screw that popsicle stick. I can freehand it. But see, this is why you don't want to go too close to the edge with your push pins, because the wood helps give you kind of an edge to cut against, which is nice. Gives you something to push into. And then here, as you can see, I use my popsicle stick to give me a straight edge to cut against, which I will say that was very nice to have, instead of me trying to freehand a round curve or something. I'd rather just have something nice. So I did like using that for that purpose. See, there you go, and then that comes up pretty nicely. And then I'm not going to torture you guys watching this whole thing. I went and cut out the edges off camera. And then here you go. You have the whole thing. I want to thank you guys for watching and putting up with my voice, my craziness. I will be trying to put out another video soon. We shall see what happens. I'm still trying to recuperate, so bear with me. But here is the finished results for the back and the finished results for the front. Hope you guys have a great day.